We all know the story of Abandoned by Disney, right? Of course. The Photonegative Mickey Mouse and the various abandoned parks and all that stuff. Not to be cliche, but all of it is true. Not too long ago, I didn't believe it myself. I believed it was just a crock of shit that anyone could have made up for no reason, just a story meant to shock people into losing a few hours sleep every night. But that changed after a bit of exploration. I was wandering around the internet, looking at various things, when I came across a nasty little picture never posted in the original blog. The picture looked to be from the late 50s, but I knew it was from later, around the 90s, since Disney hadn't even considered the concept of Mickey Mouse or his own massive corporation, with an army of big-headed cartoon mascots, children, and money to back him up until at least the 60s. Abandoned by Disney 01. The photograph I discovered. I received the original copy from the photographer on a later date. The picture shocked me, made me go a little numb. If you look properly, since I will upload the picture here, it is the same photonegative Mickey Mouse from the story, only this time, he appears to be holding a hammer and has possibly hit Donald in the head. The other cast member, a normally dressed Donald Duck, appears to either be running away or falling forward toward the ground. I would hope for the first, but my guess lies in the second, since his arms are up in the air and he is severely disbalanced. Mickey appears to be eyeing the camera maliciously with a very evil intent, and the picture is relatively blurry. Even though costumes don't have facial expressions, it appears to be a feeling that evolves from examining the photo. As well, specks of mild pink appear to dot the photo, like someone touched it with bloody hands. Remarkably enough though, is the fact that the photo survived. The camera that the original writer had attempted to shoot with broke completely when he was trying to capture it. Still, it was a close call. In the lower corner, you can see the black pixels having already started to form. Now, the issue here is, no one knows what this creature actually is. Some form of demon or a human caught in one of the various messy secrets of Disney, cursed to walk the earth of their abandoned parks? For answers, I examined the second post, Room 0. The gaskets, no-faced children, the demonic Mickey, it all fits together somehow. I've been theorizing, however, what has happened at the park, with Room 0 sealed inside. Mickey had been there. Think about it. This creature has no known intention, but is something Disney fears beyond anything else. The abandonment of various parks recklessly about the world, as Disney tends to do, Room 0 spawning up during the Cold War, and then the worst situation possible happening to it, things going wrong all over the place, and Disney's grandeur attempts at covering it up. Abandoned by Disney 04. One of the gaskets. Only available current photo. Threats of death, murder, blackmail. These instances have turned Disney Corporation into your classic stereotypical crime family. But then, I discovered some more facts. Disney employees occasionally have to move because of transfer orders to other parks and areas. Sometimes across state, across country, or anywhere else. In fact, employees who weren't laid off during their mass abandonments were sent on one of these transfers. And there was one, only one, transferred from the abandoned Malji's Palace to the park containing the infamous Room 0. I'm obviously not going to give the name, to protect her identity. Transferred was a first-time worker at Disney at the age of 17 back in 90s. The girl was close enough to 18 to begin working there. She was working as a clerk in one of the various gift shops hidden around the park, dressed in the same jungle Indian gear as many of the other employees at the time. She had been working there for about a week in the year of 1998 when the alarms went off. Speakers around the park shot up, telling everyone to evacuate the park in a normal, orderly fashion. Security officers, with masks of Mickey Mouse, Donald, and other characters on their faces, began guiding people out of very specific park exits, some not even leading into the parking lot but the wilderness around it. A security guard, donned in a goofy mask, had apparently grabbed her hand and dragged her out into the mass of confused tourists and park employees, and shoved her out a nearby gate leading into the forests. His voice was distorted, according to her, when he spoke. Abandoned by Disney 02. The photo taken by the original blogger. Notice how it starts to black out around the foot area. Run. And that's exactly what she did. Having known her way around, she went around to the parking lot and ran down the road leading to the sign of the park. She would never forget what she saw that day. According to Transferred, she had ran into a ditch and tripped over what appeared to be a door with a valve over it. Though she knew she needed to keep going in the evacuation and get out of there, but she was a rebellious teen and with her strength barely able opened the door. She stepped inside and it appeared to be a long corridor. The lights were off and it was totally dark, apart from a door on the end of the hallway. She walked through it and the lights barely held on, as if about to die themselves. She remembered seeing a very peculiar version of the Mickey Mouse face, one she would see again. It was basically a biohazard symbol with his face on it. The symbol was adorned on multiple Erlenmeyer flasks and other graduated cylinders and things. Each one held various types of liquid, boiling or frozen at the slightly above room temperature room. Abandoned by Disney 05. The symbol seen on room 0 and on the flasks. But there was another door, directly opposite the one she had gone through. She opened it up, and the first thing she heard was a demonic mouse voice. "Wanna see me take off my head?" She didn't stay long. She ran, faster than she had ever run before out of that lab, and went home, hoping to hide. She spent the remainder of the night refusing to say what exactly she saw, and I assume it was the Photonegative Mickey. But her story isn't over. A few days later, she received an odd letter from the Disney Corporation. It stated she was being transferred rather than laid off, as so many others had been. She had 1 week, and she quickly packed stuff up and moved to a provided home outside of the Disney resort. It was loaded with numbers of material goods and gums, alcohol, tobacco, food, water, everything. Disney was even willing to provide drugs to underage citizens to ensure company loyalty. About another 2 weeks into the job, she was feeling right about at home. She was working as a clerk in a gift shop, only dressed far more decently this time. But that's when she met Researcher. Researcher was a man who annually went to the same resort she was transferred to. He wasn't there to enjoy rides or do anything else. He was there looking for odd patrons wearing gas masks of Disney characters. He had stepped into her gift shop and asked her if she had seen them. It brought up the memory of what she saw, and she quickly attempted to dismiss the man. Some little time after he had left, she saw them. She would see 3 or 4 of them at a time, clustered against walls or standing around crowds. It wasn't after she took a look at a certain Disney park map that she realized that it was more than meets the eye. She noticed a massive square simply labeled private. Do not enter. She asked her supervisor about it, and they said simply not to enter it, or even go near it. The suspicious activity, though, made her want to investigate. She told me that she snuck back into the park at 3 in the morning with a flashlight. She immediately went to the northern area of the park, turning it on, and found a massive steel door where the square was. She walked inside and saw a mass amount of empty space, barely lit. Dismissing it, she went on her way. But when she got back into the park, for the second time in a row she found herself running. The caskets had began to gather right in front of her. And on top of that, they were chanting nonsense, twitching uncontrollably like a wounded animal. She wasn't taking any chances. But what is the connection to the Photonegative Mickey? He is the one that started it all. Abandoned by Disney 06. Part of China's Wonderland. Remember the lab transfer tripped into? I contacted a man who worked in one of those labs. Scientist who worked in a lab under a Disney-owned park in China. It wasn't known to be owned by Disney, and it was abandoned halfway through construction. It was called Wonderland and had entirely new characters and things. The issue was that farmers apparently had a dispute over it with a local government. But that is untrue. The lab having been built first, that was caused the problem. Scientists informed me that the labs were set up because Disney wanted to expand its profits and enter pharmaceuticals. But after a failure there, the labs never closed. Instead, they were used to intentionally create the Photonegative mascot. Scientists told me that the Photonegative mascot was created for sport, so that Disney, after its wipeout in the medical field, could expand its appeal to the welfares of adults. So they hired over 1,500 chemists, physicists, and biologists, and gave them one simple task: to create life so that it could be used in a basic arena brawl to the death. and that's what they attempted to do. But in the end, they failed. So they devised an entirely different plan: take several mascots with no life outside of the corporation. Afterwards, they constructed a serum of a yellowish color made out of certain chemicals that scientists isn't even allowed to give the name of, and injected hundreds of the mascots with the serum. It was meant to make them inhuman and put them completely under Disney's control so they could entertain the masses of beer-drinking, party-having, sex-loving men and women in Club 22 and other various VIP areas. But again, they failed. Hundreds of the injected subjects came up dead, sores all over their bodies. Some had forcibly lodged their fingers into their necks, resulting in their deaths, with words written in blood all over nearby walls and floors, often without spaces. "You can't take off me head, you can't take off me head, you can't take off me head." If you can't read it, it says, "I can't take off my head." Scientists informed me, however, that Wonderland was where a large number of deaths happened. In order to protect itself, Disney pinned it on faulty construction and then abandoned the area. He was transferred to Malji's palace and worked in the lab until they hit a success. They injected one final mascot with a serum. At first, he appeared unaffected. But as he was doing work, he complained of sores and being unable to take off his head. Fearing the worst, Disney sent him to Room Zero's park. But eventually, he was driven insane. He was spouting things about no-faced kids, stuffing suggestion cards into vending machines, complaining about the sores, and showing signs similar to the other mascots before their deaths. It was him who sounded the alarm, him who stepped on feet and cut the lights in the bomb shelter known as Room Zero. Him who caused all the deaths. It isn't known by anyone how, but that is when his costume became the photonegative color. After a bit, Disney had to cover the whole instance. The mess cover-up was set up to look like the original incident happened in the 60s, and people such as Ida knew it, but because of a close watch by the corporation, were unable to give it away. Disney controlled media attention and outlets, and convinced certain fearful people to either keep their mouth shut or give the wrong information. And what is even more unknown is how Mickey got back to Mowgli's palace. The photo I referenced earlier was a photo taken in the late 90s when the palace was abandoned. Mickey had murdered the other mascots, brutally if possible, shut off the music repetitively to draw attention. John Ridley, the one who took the photograph, had visited the palace the day before it was abandoned. He took the photo, according to him, without even noticing the cast member dying right in front of him until he fell flat on his face. He, ironically, saw no sign of photonegative Mickey. He had thought the man had died by exhaustion or heart attack until when he took the head of the suit off, he discovered the man's head bashed in. When he looked at the photo and saw Mickey, he was severely shocked. He went back the next day to find out what was going on, only to get caught in the mass confusion of the palace's evacuation. He managed it, however, and fought his way down to the palace. Entering it, he walked across the massive lobby and the lights cut out. It was totally dark. He looked around when he felt a hand on his shoulder. "Did you like the photo?" "I think it would look better without a head." It didn't take too long for him to turn around and sprint out of the place. He told me that he has never gone back again, and then proceeded to give me the photo that I showed you earlier. Of course, the reason I called him John was because he is deceased. About a week after I spoke with him, a tragic accident happened. His head had been crushed by a falling object while he was visiting New York. A gargoyle that had been shoved slightly off its post. However, if one looks closely, they can find the silhouette of an all too familiar mouse on the back of the gargoyle's neck.